What's up, guys? Joe Rock here with a new Android series called Android Studio Tips and Tricks. So as the name suggests, the series is going to be based on Android Studio, and I'm going to be talking about some things that will help you improve yourself as a Android developer by, of course, learning and building your skills on Android Studio. And tips, tricks, and really just anything in between will be included inside of this series. And the reason why, a little motivation behind it, the reason why I figured that I'd do this series is because I spent a lot of time in Android Studio. Obviously, you guys know I'm an Android developer, and I've learned a lot through it. And there's been times when I just need to get something done, and there's those times when it's like, there's got to be a better way to do this, and I'll look it up and it's like, oh, I didn't know Android Studio allows you to do this or does this for you. I wish I knew this a year ago. I would have saved so much time. So that is why this series is that I'm making it, and that's why it's coming to an existence, is because I want to prevent that for you guys. So we've all been there, but I definitely feel like we can build something. And if we start to collaborate on this series, that we can really start to say, to let this be a good resource for all Android developers to come and figure out just new features, or to figure out how to use a feature, or just kind of watch it through and just kind of build your skills and hone them all in a well-rounded sort of way. So that's sort of the motivation behind this, because I really do believe that to master your craft, you have to first master the tool. And Android Studio is obviously the number one tool to use as an Android developer. So what I'm aiming towards in this series is to really show off all the features of Android Studio and how it can really help you improve your workflow, because I believe that I definitely don't know everything about this IDE, but I do know quite a bit, enough to make a series about it and to start on it. But there's always updates, there's always features coming out for Android Studio, and I feel like this will be a good series to keep things up to date. If there's new features come out, I'll be sure to bring them here, show you guys what it is. Whether it pertains to you or not is up to you, but it's nice to know it's there and put it in your toolbox, ready to use at your disposal if you ever do need something like it. So this is a recording of just a few days after the stable release of Android Studio 2.0. So this is big news, guys. This is the first major release after the initial release of Android Studio, which was some time ago. And this was something that has been in beta for a while, Android Studio 2.0, and there's for good reason, is because there's huge improvements on this, and I'm going to start off with some of the highlights. And this first video is actually going to be going over the Android Emulator. An Android Emulator, obviously, has always been known as slow, quirky, just it's a pain to use, and that's why many other we've been kind of going over to other ways to find an Android emulator that will work for us. Microsoft has made Visual Studio Android emulator. Used it with Xamarin. Xamarin also made an Android Studio emulator. For those of you that don't know, I do have an Android series on Xamarin. Check that out if you guys are interested in Xamarin. Definitely gaining some traction as well. But Google has finally answered the call, and they have said that they've made a new emulator, runs 3 times faster than the previous emulators, and that ADB pushes out 10 times faster the APKs. This is huge, guys, and we're gonna check this out today. We're gonna put this to the test and see if this new emulator, how much faster it is, and if it really does live up to this to these standards that we hope that they do. So if this is going to be a emulator that we can use and is very functional, then this will be the emulator that most people will switch to, because it's built into Android Studio. And if it works great, then I could see myself using it very much. So let's go ahead and start this up. Let's look at the new emulator for Android Studio 2.0. All right, so I haven't I haven't done really much anything. I had to turn my Hyper-V off because I was using Hyper-V for the Visual Studio emulator. So I did have to turn that off. But other than that, I haven't really done much with setting it up. And I want it to be that way since I wanted to kind of give you guys the best example possible. So obviously we need to be on Android Studio 2.0, and because it just came out, it is in the stable release, so it's not hard to get now. You don't have to go into the beta or anything like that. But I didn't have it before. I just got it today actually. The way you can check is if you go to Help About, you'll see the Android Studio version you're on. If it's not 2.0 or if it's something less than 2.0, I think I was on 1.5. Of course, go here, check for update, and then what you should get is a prompt that says that you can then update. For me, it's saying that there's updates for the Android SDK and the tools. I'm not going to do that, but what you should see if you're not on 2.0 is an update for 2.0. Once you go ahead and update that, return here, and then the next thing you want to make sure is also to use the emulator is to be on the right SDK tools. So Android, I believe, specifies in the documentation that you need to have SDK Tools 25.1.1. So the way to check that, guys, is to come over here, and if you go into your SDK manager, you should see your SDK platform, and sometimes it's easier to pull up the standalone. This is may look more familiar to you guys. So let's bring that over here. And that's this right here, guys. This is what it's talking about right here. Android SDK Tools. And notice I am on 25.1.1. I wasn't before updating to 2.0, so I actually had to update that. Also, I'm going to create an image, so I had to update some of my image files. But I'm probably going to download a new one anyway. But you want to make sure that your Android SDK tools are up to date. Other stuff too doesn't hurt, like your platform tools. You want to make sure that's up to date. If you go down here to your bottom, you have your support libraries. I usually always try to keep those up to date. But the main thing it is talking about was the tools, the Android SDK tools needs to be on 25.1.1. So do make sure of that, guys. After you do that, it might bother you one more thing about being the plugin for Gradle needs to be on 2.0 or higher. So this is going to be something that when you do a build, Gradle build, this is after you've already installed 2.0 and everything. The project might need to, it'll say like it needs to recommend doing that, do a Gradle build, say okay. It might ask you for a fix, you might need to fix it. If you do fix the wrapper, it should take you over to 2.0. So these are the things that are obviously pretty straightforward when it comes to updating the Android Studio. You're just updating the Android Studio 2.0. So just make sure all this is up to date. If you don't know exactly, come to this documentation and just make sure you're kind of up to par with that. So that being said, of course, we can come over here and we can start using the new and create a new image for the Android emulator. So let's go ahead and do that now, guys. So I want to run this. So this is going to be, let's see if we actually, I am going to open up a more familiar project to look at. And I will do it on the same window. This is the cheese square. This is the one this is released by Chris Baines to really exemplify the design library. So it's something that you guys have probably seen, and more than likely than anything else. So I wanted to use something familiar. Haven't really touched any of the code. So, but this is just going to use something to run on the emulator. So if I come into here and I start it up, notice that it does show my emulators that I have. I have some Xamarin emulators. I have some Manexus, and I have some others that it doesn't detect because they're not running. But what I want to do is I want to create a new emulator. And when I create this is what I haven't done yet, guys, because I figured that you're going to be doing the same thing. You'll need to create a new one based on some of the new images that you've gotten. So I'm going to do the Nexus 5X is what I'll do. And I will hit next after I choose that. Android Studio is recommending Marshmallow to download. The x86 64 is probably what I'm going to get. But all of these recommended ones should work. I haven't gotten this yet from the SDK download, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and download. accept. All right, so that has downloaded, unzipped, and it looks like it's finished. All right, so now it is now selectable for me to select. So I'm gonna hit that, hit next. This is where we can name it whatever we like. I am going to just leave it at that. It's going to give us some of the things to configure, and I like to have it start up on portrait, not landscape. Graphics auto, I'm just going to leave it that way. You can change the how you want to emulate the performance of it. I'll leave it at auto, and everything looks good to me. So it'll now make a AVD for me, and it is what I just named it. So I will click that. And as you can see down here, Android Studio is doing its thing. It's building the, it's bringing up the AVD, and the issue what I've noticed, the first time it loads up, it seems to be a little slower than after that. Obviously, it'll kind of do its thing. It's doing a Gradle build as well, and we'll check out the performance of this, guys. All right, and here we got the this is our image that we just built using, and it's running Marshmallow. As you can see, it is a full-on Android device. So this is the chi-square library. I'm not really obviously going to go too much into this, but I'm really liking the way it's flowing. You know, a lot of times on the old Android emulators, you would click it, you would get a big lag on the next activity. You just feel, I mean, the word for it is just lag. You know, it just lags. So this feels really fluid, guys. Really like it. Definitely an improvement on it. So the next test is if I have it up and I want to rerun it, you know, I'll say I make some changes on here and I want to rerun. Let's go ahead and stop the app completely. And we will reselect it. So as you can see how quickly it's set up. I mean, with the initial setup, of course, when it actually starts to run, it does take a little longer. But once you have it running, which is really, you're only going to probably do that one time unless you close it out, restart your computer or something. But in development process, it's very fast. It launches. I mean, the ADB that it talks about over here, it talks about how Android development and the let's see, yeah, and ADB push speeds are a whopping 10 times faster. So that's really showing off the power of that, the ADB that's pushing out. It's really pushing out a lot of data to the emulator a lot faster than what it did before, given that the Android emulator is also 3 times faster for CPU, the RAM, the input output, comparison to other previous emulators. So I'm definitely a believer on this. This is great news, guys. So if you've ever kind of dealt with the other emulators, I mean, you just kind of have to have a physical device, or you have to kind of look elsewhere to some other third party. But I believe that's the thing of the past now, because I'm really looking and seeing that it's looking pretty good. So this is my first time running this, guys. I wasn't playing with it before. The only thing I did was I updated Android Studio 2.0 before making this video, and then this is my first install of the emulator. So I wanted to kind of have the first look at it as it is your guys' first look probably as well. So, and I gotta say I'm definitely impressed. I'm really impressed with this. If there's anything more that I need to talk about, I'll definitely make another video. But so far from the initial, it is looking pretty good. Super pumped. Yeah, so Looks like in here, I mean, like if you guys have messed with the emulator before, looks like you can emulate some like longitude and latitude if you're working with maps. The phone, that's pretty cool. You can even charge the battery if you're making an app that like has to pertain to the context of the battery level and you need to be aware of it. It seems like you can emulate that. And as you see, as I change that, it is changing the battery icon on the actual phone. If it's charging or not, we can change that. I really like that. It looks like the cellular, this is nice because you can change the cellular. So I can change it to roaming, not the voice status, but the network to the different speeds really. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Can toggle myself down to edge back in the old days. That's really nice because the fact that when you're making a lot of data calls, it's not always guaranteed the user is going to have a good connection. You want to see how your app's going to handle that. Very cool. This is what's really cool. The fingerprint is what I really like. And like I said, maybe I'll make another video. This is kind of a video I just wanted to show off the initial launch of the Android emulator, the new one after Android Studio 2.0. And if there's more to be talked about with this, which I definitely think there is as I work with it more, I can make another video on really some other cool features within it. But this one was really just to test the performance of the emulator itself, and to really see what the speeds are like. And so from what I see, definitely is looking really good. All right, so there you guys have it. There is the Android emulator for Android Studio 2.0. Thanks for watching, guys.